All she wanted was for things to be nice and pretty, the way they were in the songs. So far in this fairy tale A Song of Ice and Fire series, I've discussed Daenerys, Cersei, Jon, and even Arya. Speaking of which, either that's the worst video I've made, which it probably is, or people just don't really like Arya. Either way, you don't have to watch it if it's the worst one, but hey, if it's not, go ahead and click on it just for funsies. But now I'm finally ready to discuss the character who goes to great lengths to look at life as her own fairy tale, Sansa Stark. Honestly, the reason it's taken me so long to get Sansa is because her themes just match so many different fairy tales, including Snow White and Cinderella. I just couldn't figure out which one Sansa best represents. After a lot of reading and reviewing of Sansa's chapters, it finally hit me. A beautiful daughter who's sick of her home, is treated both as a guest and a hostage, forced into a relationship with someone she thinks is ugly. Sansa's story is illusory to Beauty and the Beast, and I honestly feel a little stupid I didn't realize it sooner. For this video, I'll be discussing the 1740 story by Gabrielle Suzanne Barbeau de Villeneuve, La Belle et la Bête, the versions of the story by Jean-Marie Le Prince de Beaumont and the Grimm's brothers, the story of Cupid and Psyche, Disney's classic animated feature, Beauty and the Beast, HBO series A Game of Thrones, and George R. R. Martin's A Song of Ice and Fire. Is it still necessary for me to clarify that? Okay, so, once upon a time, there's a lord with several daughters, but the most beautiful of his daughters is Beauty. I think it's kind of funny that Sansa gives her direwolf a name just as basic and descriptive, which is Lady. Anyways, so the father has to go on a trip for work and asks all of his daughters what they want as souvenirs. Beauty says she wants the most beautiful rose he can find. In the Grimm's version, she specifically asks for a rose when it's winter, so the only rose he can find is in a magical garden belonging to the Beast. The father gets lost during his travels and is taken in by a mysterious host who offers him meals and jewels and several comforts to help him on his way. But remembering his daughter's request, he goes into the host's garden and picks a rose. The host finally reveals himself to be the Beast, and he is very much offended that this man would steal without permission after all the Beast did for him. The dad says, "I'm so sorry, it's for my daughter." So the Beast says he can take the flower and return home, but he has to send his daughter in his place, because she's the reason he was stealing. Also, he's just lonely and wants a pretty companion. One of the first things we learn about Sansa in the show is that she wants to be queen. She wants her life to be just like all the pretty songs, and as this is a medieval patriarchal setting, she knows the most efficient way to make that dream a reality is to marry a handsome prince. In the books, Sansa is enchanted by the beautiful things about King's Landing and becoming a queen. At the hand's tourney, she receives a rose from Loras Tyrell, and she feels that he's a true knight, which, to be fair, he is. To the other maidens he had given white roses, but the one he plucked for her was red. "Sweet lady," he said, "no victory is half so beautiful as you." Sansa took the flower timidly, struck dumb by his gallantry. His hair was a mass of lazy brown curls, his eyes like liquid gold. She inhaled the sweet fragrance of the rose and sat clutching it long after Sir Loras had ridden off. The hand's tourney is meant to welcome Ned Stark as King Robert's new Hand of the King, so we have Beauty being gifted a rose because her father travels for work, just like the fairy tale. So after Robert's death, Joffrey, Sansa's fiancé, is king, and Ned is imprisoned for trying to stage a coup. But instead of Sansa offering herself up as a prisoner, she publicly pleads for Joffrey to show her father mercy. But then I guess Sansa actually does take Ned's place, because after he's killed and Arya escapes, she's the only hostage the Lannisters have left. So we have a few beasts in Sansa's story. Joffrey is like a reversed beast. In the fairy tale, the beast is ugly on the outside, but a handsome prince on the inside. Joffrey is a handsome prince on the outside, but a psychotic monster on the inside. Joffrey plays the role of Sansa's beast in the first part of her arc. The beast in the second part of her arc is Tyrion, whom Sansa is actually forced to marry. Tyrion is ugly on the outside, but a king on the inside. Whether Tyrion is a villain or not, When he's married to Sansa, he's good to her, and we all know he's competent as a ruler. This part of Sansa's story parallels Beauty and the Beast when Beauty is treated as a guest by the Beast. My guest. He was wearing his chain of office, a necklace of linked golden hands. I thought we might talk. As my lord commands. Sansa found it hard not to stare. His face was so ugly it held a queer fascination for her. The food and garments are to your satisfaction, he asked. If there is anything else you need, you have only to ask. The Beast feeds Beauty and treats her with beautiful clothes and jewels and asks her to go to bed with him every night, and every single night she says no, which is totally her right. It just reminds me of how Tyrion promises Sansa he won't make her go to bed with him unless she wants to, and treats her as well as he can. This is the part of the story where Beauty finds out that her father is sick, so she flees to visit her family. Except in Sansa's case, her family is already dead, and she flees King's Landing due to the scheming of one Peter Baelish. And no, Littlefinger is not the third beast figure in Sansa's story. I think of him more as Gaston from the Disney movie. Don't get me wrong, Littlefinger is no looker and Gaston is no maniacal genius, but they both have fixations on these women and have power over the community even though they're not royal. Gaston has a raging jealousy over Belle's love for the Beast, and Littlefinger's entire motivation is due to the jealousy of Brandon and Ned Stark. So then who's Sansa's third beast? With this kiss I pledge my love, the dwarf replied hoarsely, and take you for my lady and wife. He leaned forward and their lips touched briefly. He is so ugly, Sansa thought when his face was close to hers. He is even uglier than the Hound. Yes, ladies, gents, and non-binary friends, it's Sandor Clegane, aka the Hound. Sandor and Sansa's relationship makes my heart burst. She always wanted a true knight, and even though he isn't technically a knight, he's a knight in the sense that he protects the weak. He's specifically protected Sansa numerous times, and Sandor looks at Sansa and almost wants her to treat him the way everyone else does, like he's an ugly beast, because Sansa is a beautiful young lady, so how could she ever love him? And Sansa sees the Hound, and yes, sees his ugly scars, and knows he's not a handsome prince, but she still is kind to him, sings for him, and even misremembers kissing him. He kissed me and threatened to kill me and made me sing him a song. But they never did kiss. I could keep you safe, he rasped. They're all afraid of me. No one would hurt you again or I'd kill them. He yanked her closer, and for a moment she thought he meant to kiss her. He was too strong to fight. She closed her eyes, wanting it to be over, but nothing happened. Still can't bear to look, can you? She heard him say. Beast is a word that can be used to describe all animals. When applied to humans, it refers to a person's untamed or brutish characteristics. I think this says a lot about each of the beast characters in Sansa's Beauty story. In Disney's version, the beast most resembles a lion or wolf/dog. In popular illustrations, he looks like a boar. In the Italian version, the beast takes the form of a snake. What a coincidence! All of those animals have important symbolic roles in A Song of Ice and Fire. I apply the boar-looking beast to Joffrey because Joffrey becomes king when his quote-unquote father is killed by a boar. The more dog or wolf-looking beast is representative of the Hound. No, I don't think the wolf-looking beast foreshadows Jon at all. You can be a Jon stan, but ew. I like the lion-looking beast relating to Tyrion, a lion of Lannister. Also, for my Tyrion Targaryen pals, I would like to point out that Beauty and the Beast is directly inspired by Cupid and Psyche. And, well, here's a passage from the Wikipedia article. Although her two humanly beautiful sisters have married, the idolized Psyche has yet to find love. Her father suspects that they have incurred the wrath of gods and consults the oracle of Apollo. The response is unsettling. The king is to expect no human son-in-law, but rather a dragon-like creature who harasses the world with fire and iron, and is feared by even Jupiter and the inhabitants of the underworld. The father of the beauty character in this story, Psyche, has a fear that his daughter is going to marry a dragon-like creature who harasses the world with fire and iron. So this could just be relating to Ned not wanting Sansa to marry Joffrey, a king who sits on a throne of iron and harasses the world. But, just maybe, it could foreshadow Sansa marrying a different dragon-like creature who harasses the world. And if Tyrion really is a secret Targ, which I think he is, then this has already come true. Just a little extra food for thought wrapped in tinfoil. Anyways, the repeated message in all versions of Beauty and the Beast is, don't be fooled by appearances. This is a lesson that Sansa needs to learn over and over again, and is really the biggest part of her story. It costs Sansa her family to learn that a beautiful queen can be a huge bitch, and that a handsome prince can be a sadistic abuser, and that having the title of knight does not make a man noble or valiant. At this point in the story, Sansa is using the knowledge she's learned to try and appear as nothing more than a bastard daughter and fly under the radar, while gathering tools to be a player instead of just a pawn. The story of Beauty and the Beast usually ends with Beauty, whether through nightmares or a magic little mirror, having visions of the Beast dying in her absence, so she returns to him and confesses her love, thus breaking the spell that turned him into a beast in the first place, and they live happily ever after. If that's how Sansa's story to end, it would be weird if she went through so much to learn to finally judge people for who they are, not by their appearances, just for her to be rewarded with a handsome prince and a happily ever after. Sansa isn't my favorite character, but I'm not a Sansa hater either. Her point of view is very valuable to the reader, and her romantic lens of the world shows us kind of a meta-examination on just how different A Song of Ice and Fire is from the watered-down fairy tales that we're used to, yet uncoincidentally similar to the story's darker origins. It is thought that Beauty and the Beast was originally a story meant to teach young girls that it's okay to marry someone you don't know because you will learn to love them, since it was written at a time arranged marriages were still very much the norm. The fact that Beauty's sacrifice and selflessness to go live with the Beast for the sake of her father seems to support this, because it would teach the female readers or listeners that accepting the arranged marriage would be the heroic thing to do for her family. I don't think it's a coincidence that this is the familiar role and duty Sansa begins her story determined to fulfill. Sansa starts the series like a little girl who grew up reading Beauty and the Beast and came to the conclusion that the best thing she can do for her family is to get married, and especially marry the prince. This would have been reinforced by her cultural upbringing, since her mother Catelyn essentially married Ned out of a sense of duty. This also supports why Sansa would stick by her betrothed's side, even when he shows beast-like qualities to the point that it gets her pet wolf killed. But Sansa's fate and transformation shows how accepting patriarchal societal roles and marriage arrangements can be, and is, realistically, dangerous. But now she seems to be learning to use that danger to her advantage. I have two dream ideas for how Sansa's story will end. She could eventually get back together with Tyrion and get married for realsies and potentially have the power of the Iron Throne or Casterly Rock, and love Tyrion for who he is, a clever, funny, and ultimately well-meaning man, regardless of his name, be it Lannister or Targaryen. The romantic in me would also like to see her reunite with Sandor and realize that he was the true knight she always wanted, and he becomes her sworn shield while she rules Winterfell, and they fall in love. Probably not. That sounds way too cute to be a realistic ending in A Song of Ice and Fire. But hey, a girl can dream, right?